Today, I want to share a story of resilience, compassion, and the transformative power of love. It's about a man who, against all odds, chose a path no one expected. He was a cop, tough as nails and accustomed to solitude, until one decision turned his life inside out. He adopted not one, but 8 orphaned girls, and in doing so, discovered a whole new meaning to life. This journey speaks of courage, unity, and breaking barriers, a journey that may just inspire you to look beyond appearances and find strength in love. If this story moves you, please subscribe to our channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us something inspiring, perhaps something about the power of love or the importance of family. Together, let's celebrate the beauty of stories like this one. Nearly a quarter century ago, in a small town tucked away from the bustling city lights, lived a man named Brian Roddy. To his neighbors and colleagues, Brian was the embodiment of the dedicated, unwavering lawman. He was a cop through and through, stern, by the book, and famously unshakable. Brian wasn't known for warmth or tenderness. He was known as the tough cop who faced down danger without so much as a flinch, a figure both respected and feared by his community. Brian had lived much of his life in isolation. Though he had once been married, he and his wife never had children. Her unexpected death left a void he tried to fill with long hours on the job, choosing duty over companionship and finding solace in routine and service. But life, as he was about to learn, often has plans of its own. It was one fateful evening, as he was reviewing case files, that Brian stumbled upon a report that would change his life forever. The file detailed a heartbreaking accident that left 8 young sisters orphaned. These were no ordinary children. They had faced tragedy at an age when life should be filled with innocence. The girls, ranging from a toddler to a young teenager, were now alone, uprooted from the only stability they had known. They faced an uncertain future, likely separated into different foster homes. Brian was no stranger to hardship, but something about these girls' stories struck him to the core. Maybe it was their vulnerability, maybe it was the sheer weight of their loss, or perhaps it was simply fate. Whatever it was, he felt an undeniable pull. There was a connection, a sense of responsibility that he couldn't shake off. And so, against every ounce of logic and despite his lack of experience in parenting, he began to contemplate a path so radical that it stunned even him. He decided he would adopt these girls and become their father. For a white man, a law enforcement officer known for his stoic reputation, to adopt 8 black girls raised many eyebrows. In a small town still grappling with deep-seated prejudices and whispers of racial division, Brian's decision wasn't just unconventional, it was groundbreaking. People questioned his motives, speculated on his reasons, and of course, there were those who doubted his capacity to care for them. Even his colleagues, men and women who had known him for years, voiced their concerns. They saw him as a man unprepared for the emotional demands of fatherhood, let alone the challenges that came with adopting children of a different race. But Brian was not a man easily swayed by public opinion. His heart was set, and he was prepared to step into this new chapter. Regardless of the challenges it presented, he filed the necessary paperwork, endured the grueling assessment process, and faced the barrage of skepticism from both the community and the authorities overseeing the adoption. And at last, he welcomed the girls into his life and his home. For Brian, the adjustment was monumental. These 8 sisters, each with her own personality, fears, and dreams, entered his life in a whirlwind. He had no training, no previous experience, and no roadmap to guide him. But he did have resolve, an ironclad determination to give these girls a life filled with stability and love. It didn't take long for him to realize the weight of his decision. From learning about their past traumas to understanding the intricacies of their relationships with each other, Brian found himself in uncharted territory, far from the controlled environment of his police work. For the girls, too, the shift was immense. They had lost everything, from their parents to the home they had once known, and were now expected to embrace a stranger as their father. They were hesitant, wary, and cautious around him. Brian's stern demeanor didn't exactly inspire immediate warmth, and he had to work hard to build even a semblance of trust. In those early days, the house was filled with silence and cautious glances, a quiet but palpable tension that hinted at the fragility of their new arrangement. But Brian was committed. He wasn't a man to back down from a challenge, and as each day passed, he invested himself more deeply in his new role. He would rise early to prepare breakfast, trying his best to make meals that would please the girls. He spent evenings reading books on child psychology and racial identity, eager to understand the world from their perspective. Slowly, the initial awkwardness began to give way to small moments of connection. A smile here, a shared laugh there, and an unspoken understanding that grew stronger with each passing day. One particular memory stands out: the day Brian took the girls to the local park for a family picnic. It was their first real outing together, and Brian had arranged it to celebrate the youngest sister's birthday. The day was filled with laughter as the girls ran around, playing tag, their faces beaming with joy. Brian watched them, his heart swelling with a sense of purpose he had never known before. The world around them seemed to fade, and for those brief hours, they were simply a father with his daughters, sharing in the joy of being together. Yet, even amid the happiness, Brian couldn't ignore the stares and whispers from passers-by. It was a reminder that their journey as a family would not be free from prejudice. But in that moment, he knew he would do whatever it took to protect these girls, to show them they were cherished, and to give them the love they deserved. Brian's decision to adopt these girls had already changed his life in ways he couldn't fully comprehend. He was no longer just a cop or a widower lost in his work. He was a father with all the joys and challenges that came with it. And as he looked at the girls, their faces radiant with happiness, he felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment, a sense that his life had, at last, found its true purpose. And so began Brian's journey into a life he had never imagined, one filled with love, challenges, and an unbreakable commitment to the family he had chosen. Yet, the road ahead was fraught with trials, as both Brian and the girls would soon discover. He was about to face the judgment of a skeptical town, the relentless demands of fatherhood, and a battle to protect his daughters from the prejudice they faced. In the next chapter, we will explore the daily struggles and personal conflicts that Brian encountered as he adapted to his new life. Stay tuned as we uncover the trials that tested his resolve and the moments that strengthened his bond with each of his daughters. The early days of Brian's life as a father were marked by both hope and hardship. Adopting 8 daughters had transformed his world, filling it with color, noise, and love. But this transition came with countless daily struggles. For Brian, every morning was a reminder of the vast responsibility he had taken on, a responsibility that extended far beyond providing food, shelter, and stability. Each girl brought her own set of needs, fears, and dreams. And Brian quickly realized that being a father meant becoming so much more than a provider. Brian's home, once a quiet retreat, now echoed with the sounds of laughter, arguments, and the occasional tantrum. To him, this was both a joy and a challenge. His life had always been governed by structure, by routine, and by clear boundaries, qualities that had defined his career as a cop. But parenting these girls demanded flexibility, patience, and a willingness to embrace the unexpected. One of his first challenges was winning the girls' trust. They had been through a traumatic loss, and the shadow of that tragedy lingered over them. Brian noticed how each girl dealt with her grief differently. Some were openly emotional, shedding tears that seemed endless, while others retreated into silence, their pain buried beneath a quiet resilience. Brian had to learn to be present in different ways for each of them. His badge and uniform had never required him to console a grieving child, yet here he was, night after night, offering a listening ear, a comforting shoulder, and a safe space where his daughters could express their pain. The town's judgment only made things harder. Brian's choice had already stirred up controversy, and now that he was actually living it, he felt the weight of that scrutiny. When he would take the girls to the grocery store or walk with them in the local park, he could feel the stares. Conversations would hush as he walked by, and on more than one occasion, he overheard comments questioning his intentions. In a small town, where traditions ran deep and changes were often met with skepticism, Brian's decision was seen as strange, even inappropriate by some. Brian found himself wrestling with his own emotions too. His past life, one marked by solitude and self-reliance, was slipping away, replaced by a life he couldn't control. He struggled with moments of doubt, asking himself if he was truly capable of raising 8 daughters, if he could give them the love and stability they deserved. Each day presented new challenges that tested his resolve and his resilience. Among the struggles was the delicate matter of culture. Brian knew that he had a responsibility not just to provide a loving home, but to understand and honor the girls' heritage. These young girls who had lost their parents now looked to him for guidance, and he realized that part of his role was to keep them connected to their roots. Brian began to read, to educate himself on the cultural traditions that the girls might have grown up with, had their parents been there to guide them. He wanted to understand Juneteenth, to learn about Kwanzaa, and to immerse himself in the history and celebrations that would honor their identity. This task was daunting, and Brian felt his inadequacy keenly. But rather than let it overwhelm him, he turned to resources within the community. He sought out conversations with Black families in town, asking them questions and listening to their advice. Some were reluctant at first, skeptical of his intentions, but slowly, as they saw his genuine commitment, they opened up to him. One family invited him to their Juneteenth celebration, where he and his daughters were welcomed with open arms. The experience was transformative for Brian and for the girls, who saw their father's earnest attempts to bridge the gap between his world and theirs. Despite his best efforts, Brian's journey was far from smooth. His background in law enforcement had taught him to solve problems quickly and efficiently. But parenting 8 grieving children was different. It was a long, complex, and sometimes painful process. The girls often pushed back, especially the older ones, who were more aware of the judgments that followed their family. They questioned his rules, his motivations, and even his love for them, testing the boundaries of their relationship and searching for reassurance in their own way. Brian faced these moments with patience, understanding that their resistance was often rooted in fear. To support them, he enrolled in counseling sessions, not only for the girls but for himself as well. He realized that parenting wasn't a journey he could walk alone. He needed guidance too. Through therapy, he learned to listen deeply, to give space when needed, and to approach discipline not as a tool of control, but as a form of guidance. Slowly, the girls began to open up more, sharing with him their memories, their fears, and their hopes. Amidst these personal battles, Brian continued to grapple with his own grief. Losing his wife had been a blow from which he had never fully recovered, and now he felt her absence even more acutely. He often wondered how she would have handled certain situations, how she would have comforted the girls or celebrated their milestones. Brian found solace in small rituals. He kept her wedding ring on his nightstand and visited her grave regularly, sharing with her the details of their growing family. It was his way of feeling her presence, of keeping her memory alive as he built a new life with the girls. As time passed, Brian and the girls began to settle into a rhythm, a delicate balance between past pain and present joy. Every small victory felt monumental. Their first shared Christmas, their first family portrait, the day the youngest finally called him Dad. These moments, though seemingly ordinary, carried an emotional weight that Brian treasured deeply. They were symbols of a bond slowly forming, a fragile yet resilient connection that grew stronger with each passing day. Brian's journey as a father wasn't just about overcoming external challenges. It was also about confronting his own limitations, his own insecurities, and his own need for growth. He had entered this journey thinking he could teach the girls about strength, resilience, and survival. But it was the girls who taught him about vulnerability, patience, and unconditional love. Every struggle, every late-night conversation, and every tear shed together added layers to their relationship, transforming Brian from a solitary cop into a devoted father. Through these daily struggles, Brian's sense of purpose solidified. The judgment from others became less important, fading into the background as he focused on what truly mattered: the happiness and well-being of his daughters. He found himself making sacrifices he had never thought himself capable of. devoting his time, energy, and heart to these 8 remarkable girls who had brought his life a new depth. Despite the hardships, Brian never wavered in his commitment. He knew that fatherhood wasn't a title. It was a daily choice, a promise to be there through the highs and lows. And with each challenge they overcame together, the girls began to see him not as a replacement for their lost parents, but as a father in his own right, someone who had chosen to love them without hesitation, without condition. As Brian looked back on those early years, he marveled at how far they had come. They had weathered storms together, creating memories that would bind them forever. And though the path had been filled with hardship, Brian knew that he wouldn't have chosen any other life. He was not just their father, he was their family, a role that had become his life's purpose and his greatest joy. The journey was far from over, though. With a growing understanding and a deepening bond, Brian and his daughters were about to face new challenges that would further test their resilience and bring them even closer. In the next chapter, we'll explore how they began to bridge the gap between their cultures, finding strength in their differences and building a family that celebrated both heritage and love. As Brian settled into his new role as a father, he quickly realized that raising his 8 daughters would require more than the usual parenting challenges. Each of his daughters brought with her a legacy of cultural history that was both rich and complex, and Brian knew he had a duty to honor it. Although he was still learning the rhythms of their family life, he understood that their bond would only deepen if he could make their home a space where they felt seen, heard, and celebrated for who they truly were. Brian started with small but meaningful gestures, seeking to incorporate the girls' heritage into their daily lives. He began by setting aside time each week to learn more about Black history and culture. It wasn't enough, he realized, to simply read about it. He had to engage with it, to bring it alive for the girls in ways that would feel genuine and personal. Brian soon learned that creating a family wasn't just about ensuring everyone felt loved. It was about celebrating the diversity that each person brought into the household. One of the first steps he took was to incorporate cultural celebrations into their family traditions. Brian learned about Juneteenth, a day commemorating the end of slavery in the United States, and he was inspired by its message of freedom and resilience. He decided to make Juneteenth a key family celebration, using it as an opportunity to educate the girls about their history, while also creating memories that would bind them closer together. That first Juneteenth was a humble celebration, but it held a powerful meaning. Brian invited close friends from the community, as well as families who had supported him and the girls during their early struggles. Together, they prepared traditional dishes, shared stories, and engaged in meaningful conversations. The girls were initially shy, perhaps unsure how to navigate this new tradition with their father. But Brian noticed that, by the end of the day, a warmth and pride filled their eyes. They saw that Brian wasn't simply adopting traditions for the sake of it. He was genuinely committed to honoring their heritage. Over time, the girls began to open up more, sharing with Brian the parts of their culture that were particularly meaningful to them. They taught him about their favorite soul food recipes, passed down from generation to generation. And Brian would often spend his weekends perfecting dishes like collard greens, fried chicken, and cornbread, hoping to bring a taste of their past into the present. These cooking sessions became cherished times, where the girls felt a deeper connection to their roots and a sense of comfort in knowing that Brian cared enough to participate in something that held so much significance. Another cultural tradition that Brian embraced was Kwanzaa, a holiday that celebrates African American heritage, community, and values. As Brian explored the 7 principles of Kwanzaa: unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith, he saw values that resonated with his own beliefs, values he wanted to instill in the girls. Each year, they would light the kinara, the 7-candle holder, and reflect on what each principle meant to them as a family. For Brian, Kwanzaa was more than just a holiday. It was a way to teach the girls about their history, while also reinforcing the values that he hoped would guide them through life. Yet, for all his efforts, Brian knew that he couldn't fully understand every aspect of their experiences. There were challenges and questions that only someone from their own community could truly answer. He recognized that, as much as he loved them, there would be gaps in his understanding of the unique difficulties they might face as Black girls growing up in a predominantly white community. To bridge this gap, Brian began seeking out mentors, Black women and men who could provide wisdom, advice, and a sense of cultural grounding for his daughters. Among these mentors was a woman named Lillian, a retired teacher who had spent decades advocating for children of color in their community. She became an integral part of their family, offering guidance to Brian and friendship to the girls. Lillian taught the girls to take pride in their heritage and encouraged them to embrace their identities with confidence. Through Lillian, Brian was able to provide his daughters with a positive role model, someone who could teach them about resilience and self-worth in ways that he, as a father, could not. But the process of embracing their cultural identity was not without struggle. Brian's daughters faced discrimination and prejudice, both in school and in the community. As they grew older, they became more aware of the biases around them, and Brian witnessed their growing frustration. There were instances when the girls came home hurt by insensitive comments or ostracized by peers who didn't understand them. Brian's heart broke each time one of his daughters confided in him about the pain she felt, and he grappled with his own feelings of helplessness. In these moments, Brian's role as a father became even more crucial. He became their strongest advocate, attending school meetings, challenging discriminatory practices, and ensuring that his daughters knew they had someone on their side. He sought out resources on raising children who might experience racial bias, reading everything he could to help him understand how to support them. He learned to listen without judgment, to validate their feelings, and to remind them of their worth. Through this journey, Brian discovered that being a father was as much about showing vulnerability as it was about being strong. He shared his own struggles, admitting that he didn't always have the answers, but that he would never stop trying. This honesty created a deep bond of trust between him and his daughters, who saw in him not just a protector, but a man willing to learn and grow alongside them. Over time, their family found its own rhythm, one that celebrated both their differences and their unity. Brian taught his daughters values rooted in integrity, resilience, and kindness, principles he had learned throughout his life. The girls, in turn, taught him about courage, empathy, and the importance of honoring one's roots. Together, they created a family culture that was a blend of their heritage and Brian's values, a fusion that celebrated the beauty of their unique backgrounds while emphasizing the strength they had as a family. These experiences strengthened their bond, creating a foundation built on mutual respect and love. They learned to support each other through the challenges they faced, to find joy in their shared traditions, and to navigate the complexities of identity and belonging together. Brian saw that his daughters were growing up with a sense of pride and self-assurance, qualities that would carry them through whatever challenges life presented. Brian's commitment to honoring his daughters' heritage and supporting their sense of identity was a profound expression of his love. It was a testament to the lengths he was willing to go to ensure that his daughters felt whole, loved, and respected. And as he looked at his daughters, he knew that his life's purpose had become so much larger than himself. They were his family, his reason, and the embodiment of a journey that had started with a brave decision and grown into something deeply meaningful. Their family bond was stronger than ever, but Brian's journey as a father was far from complete. In the next chapter, we'll follow Brian as he continues to support each daughter on her unique path, celebrating their accomplishments and encouraging them to dream big, while navigating the trials and triumphs that come with raising a family. Years passed, and Brian witnessed each of his daughters blossom, each one following a unique path shaped by her dreams, challenges, and the family's collective experiences. For Brian, being part of their journeys was a privilege and an adventure all its own. Each of his daughters developed into an individual with her own aspirations, strengths, and passions. Watching them grow into young women, Brian felt a mix of pride, awe, and nostalgia for the years that had passed in what felt like the blink of an eye. From the start, Brian was determined to be more than just a provider. He wanted his daughters to know that their dreams, however big or small, were achievable. He became their most enthusiastic supporter, attending every recital, science fair, and school event. For him, these were more than just events. They were milestones, each one a testament to the resilience and ambition his daughters carried within them. One of his daughters, Aaliyah, was deeply passionate about music. Brian first noticed her talent when he heard her singing softly in her room, her voice carrying a delicate yet powerful tone that touched his heart. Encouraging her to explore her gift, Brian saved up to buy her a second-hand piano, which he placed proudly in their living room. Aaliyah would spend hours practicing, her fingers dancing across the keys, filling the house with melodies that became the soundtrack to their lives. Brian supported her through every recital and concert, always sitting in the front row, his heart swelling with pride as she performed. Aaliyah's music became a source of healing for the family, a reminder of the beauty that could arise from life's hardships. Then there was Naomi, a natural-born athlete with an unbreakable spirit. Brian could see her drive from an early age. She was competitive, determined, and unafraid to push her limits. Whether it was soccer, basketball, or track, Naomi excelled in sports, her eyes lighting up with joy every time she hit the field. Brian became her biggest cheerleader, driving her to early morning practices and late-night games, shouting encouragement from the sidelines. For Naomi, sports weren't just an outlet. They were a way to channel her energy and resilience, a way to carve out a space where she could be her strongest self. Brian saw her potential, not only as an athlete but as a leader, and he encouraged her to chase her dreams with unwavering confidence. Meanwhile, his daughter Leah had a quieter strength, one rooted in compassion and understanding. Leah had always been sensitive to the emotions of those around her, and she often took on the role of peacemaker among her sisters. As she grew older, her interest in helping others deepened, and she began volunteering at a local community center. Brian admired Leah's empathy and commitment, watching as she dedicated herself to making a difference in the lives of others. She dreamed of becoming a social worker, and Brian encouraged her at every step, knowing that her kind heart and determination would make her an invaluable presence in the world. Each of Brian's daughters had her own dreams, and he made it his mission to support them unconditionally. But supporting their ambitions was not without its challenges. There were times when resources were tight, when his role as both father and provider stretched him thin. Brian often had to make sacrifices, working extra hours or cutting back on personal expenses to ensure that his daughters had the opportunities they deserved. For him, these sacrifices were small prices to pay for the privilege of seeing his daughters thrive. Beyond their individual pursuits, Brian was committed to teaching his daughters the values that had shaped his life: integrity, resilience, and compassion. He wanted them to understand the importance of standing up for what was right, of treating others with kindness, and of never giving up, no matter how tough life became. These values became the cornerstone of their family, guiding the girls as they navigated their own paths. Over time, Brian saw these values reflected in his daughters in ways that filled him with pride. He saw it in the way Aaliyah dedicated herself to her music, pouring her heart into every note and using her voice to inspire others. He saw it in Naomi's fierce determination on the field, in her refusal to back down from challenges and her commitment to her teammates. And he saw it in Leah's quiet strength, her ability to listen, to empathize, and to offer support to those in need. Brian knew that his daughters faced unique challenges as young Black women in a world that was not always kind or understanding. They encountered prejudice and bias, both subtle and overt, and there were times when the weight of these experiences took a toll on them. But Brian was there for each of them, offering his support, his encouragement, and his unwavering belief in their worth. He reminded them that they were capable, that they were valuable, and that they had the right to chase their dreams with confidence. There was one moment in particular that stayed with him, a moment that encapsulated the strength and unity of their family. Naomi had just returned from a soccer game, visibly upset. She had faced discrimination on the field, comments from opponents that cut deep. As she recounted the experience, her sisters gathered around her, offering words of support. angered by the injustice but united in their love for her. Brian watched as his daughters comforted each other, their bond unbreakable, their love a source of strength. In that moment, he realized that he had succeeded in his greatest goal. He had given them not just a family, but a home where they felt safe, valued, and supported. As the years went on, Brian's daughters continued to grow, to evolve, and to achieve. They graduated high school, pursued higher education, and began forging their own paths in the world. For Brian, each milestone was a reminder of the journey they had shared, of the challenges they had overcome, and of the love that bound them together. Watching them become independent, confident young women was both a source of joy and a bittersweet reminder that his role was shifting. They were no longer the little girls he had once known. They were now young women, ready to face the world on their own terms. Brian knew that his daughters would face new challenges, that life would test them in ways he couldn't predict. But he also knew that they had the strength, resilience, and values to navigate whatever came their way. He had raised them to be fearless, compassionate, and determined. And he took comfort in knowing that they would carry these qualities with them, wherever life might lead them. In quiet moments, Brian would look through family photos, remembering the early days of their journey, the struggles, the triumphs, the lessons learned along the way. He saw in those images a family that had been forged through love and resilience, a family that had chosen each other and grown together. Brian felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the life he had been given, for the privilege of being a father to these remarkable young women. For Brian, his daughters' growth and transformation were a testament to the power of love, to the impact of a father's dedication, and to the strength of a family built on acceptance and understanding. He knew that their journey was just beginning, that they would go on to make their own mark on the world, carrying with them the lessons and values he had instilled. The journey of this family was far from over. In the next chapter, we will delve into the everyday moments that strengthened their bond even further, the quiet, intimate memories that defined their family and showed Brian that the true meaning of life lay in these simple, shared moments. Stay tuned as we uncover the beauty of these small, heartfelt experiences that made their family truly special. Despite the big milestones and significant achievements that Brian's daughters experienced, it was the smaller, everyday moments that truly cemented their family bond. For Brian, these simple instances were a constant reminder of the life he had chosen, a life filled with the laughter, chaos, and warmth of a home that pulsed with the energy of his daughters. The life he'd built with them was a stark contrast to the solitude he had once known, and he cherished every small act of love and togetherness that had now become the heartbeat of their family. Mornings at the Roddy household were always bustling. Brian, an early riser by habit, would be the first to wake, preparing breakfast for his daughters. He'd make sure each plate was set just right, the food carefully chosen to match their different preferences. As the aroma of pancakes, eggs, and fresh coffee filled the kitchen, one by one, his daughters would emerge, groggy-eyed but smiling, drawn to the table by the familiar scent and the warmth of Brian's presence. The morning ritual became a sacred time for them, a moment of togetherness that set the tone for the day ahead. As his daughters grew older and their schedules became more demanding, Brian made it a priority to preserve these family breakfasts. He knew how important it was for them to start the day together, to share a meal before they each went out into the world. They would talk about their plans for the day, share their worries, and celebrate each other's accomplishments, no matter how small. Brian understood that these moments of connection were what made their family strong, grounding them in the love and support they had for one another. But it wasn't just the mornings that brought them together. There were late nights when Brian and his daughters would gather in the living room, watching old movies and laughing until they couldn't breathe. Brian introduced them to classics he'd grown up with, movies from a different era that sparked conversations about life, love, and the world. The girls in turn shared their favorite films, introducing Brian to stories he might never have encountered on his own. It became a cherished tradition, a time when they could all relax, unwind, and simply be together without any expectations or obligations. Brian's daughters also took joy in surprising him, showing their love and appreciation in ways that left him deeply touched. On Father's Day, they would prepare an elaborate celebration, each daughter contributing something personal, a homemade card, a favorite dish, or a song. They'd spend the day honoring Brian, showering him with the affection and gratitude they felt, but didn't always express. For Brian, these gestures were profound reminders of the bond they shared. He often felt he received far more than he had given, humbled by the love his daughters showed him. One of the most precious memories Brian held close was the day the family decided to take a road trip. A spontaneous adventure born from the girls' excitement and a shared longing for escape. They piled into Brian's old truck, laughter and music filling the air as they drove through miles of countryside. They stopped at roadside diners, explored small towns, and hiked through trails, creating memories that would be etched in their minds forever. Brian watched as his daughters experienced the joy of discovery, their faces lighting up with wonder and excitement. It was a reminder of the beauty of life's simple pleasures, of the joy that could be found in shared experiences and open horizons. Then there were the quiet moments, the intimate exchanges that reminded Brian of the depth of their connection. Late at night, his daughters would sometimes knock softly on his door, seeking his comfort and wisdom. Whether it was about a difficult day at school, a friendship that had soured, or worries about the future, Brian would listen intently, offering words of encouragement and reassurance. In these moments, he became not just their father, but their confidant, a safe harbor where they could express their fears and dreams without judgment. He cherished these conversations, recognizing that trust and openness were the true foundations of their relationship. Brian also loved the little routines they had built together, the small acts of kindness that defined their family life. Each Sunday, they would spend the afternoon cooking a big meal, each daughter assigned a different task. They would laugh and joke, their hands busy with chopping, stirring, and seasoning, the kitchen alive with a harmony only they could create. It was during these times that Brian felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, marveling at how these once separate lives had come together to form something beautiful and whole. The simple act of preparing and sharing a meal became a symbol of their unity, a reminder that they were bound together by love, choice, and shared purpose. The seasons came and went, and each year brought with it new experiences, new joys, and new challenges. Brian marked the passing of time by the small changes he noticed in each of his daughters, the way their voices matured, the confidence with which they spoke, and the way they began to assert their independence. He felt a bittersweet pride watching them grow, knowing that one day they would leave to pursue their own paths. But he also took comfort in the memories they had built together, memories that would anchor them no matter where life took them. Brian learned that family wasn't defined by blood, but by commitment, by the daily acts of love and care that bound them together. He realized that his daughters were his legacy, a testament to the life he had chosen and the love he had given freely. In their laughter, in their shared stories, and in the quiet moments of understanding, Brian saw the reflection of a life well lived, a life dedicated to something greater than himself. As his daughters continued to grow, Brian found himself reflecting on the meaning of family, of what it meant to truly belong to one another. For him, family was more than a group of people living under one roof. It was a source of strength, a bond built on shared memories, laughter, and love. He had taught his daughters the importance of compassion, resilience, and integrity, but they had taught him something even more profound: the joy of vulnerability, the beauty of connection, and the fulfillment that came from a life filled with love. In those quiet moments, Brian would sit on the porch, a cup of coffee in hand, watching the sun dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow over their home. He felt a sense of peace, knowing that he had given his daughters a life filled with love, stability, and support. He understood that the true measure of a family wasn't in grand gestures or achievements, but in the everyday acts of kindness, the simple, heartfelt moments that brought them closer together. As Brian looked back on their journey, he felt an overwhelming sense of pride and gratitude. He had been given a second chance at life, an opportunity to create something beautiful out of loss and solitude. His daughters were his joy, his purpose, and his legacy. And in their love, he found the true meaning of family, a bond that transcended blood, bound by love, respect, and a shared journey. This chapter of their story may be filled with small, everyday moments, but as Brian and his daughters discovered, these moments were the building blocks of a family. Yet, their journey was not just about creating memories, but also about instilling a deep sense of identity and pride. In the next chapter, we'll explore how Brian empowered each of his daughters to embrace their heritage and build confidence in who they were, equipping them with the tools to face the world with strength and self-acceptance. As Brian's daughters approached young adulthood, he recognized that his role as their father was evolving yet again. The foundation of love and support he had provided would always be there, but he knew it was also time to empower them to embrace who they were and to face the world with self-assurance. This stage of their journey was about more than just supporting their dreams. It was about equipping them with the confidence to navigate a world that would often challenge them, a world where their identities and experiences might sometimes be misunderstood or even marginalized. Brian knew that, as Black young women in a predominantly white community, his daughters would encounter situations that required them to stand tall, to assert their worth, and to hold firm to their sense of self. He wanted them to embrace their heritage with pride, to see their unique backgrounds as strengths, and to recognize that they were more than capable of achieving whatever they set their minds to. But he also understood that his role as a white father meant he couldn't fully prepare them on his own. His daughters' heritage and identities were deeply personal, and he wanted them to have access to a community that could guide them, empower them, and offer them perspectives he simply couldn't provide. Determined to give them the resources they needed, Brian introduced his daughters to a group in their community dedicated to mentorship and support for young Black women. These mentors became an extension of their family aunts, uncles, and friends who offered wisdom, experience, and strength. The girls attended workshops on racial identity, self-acceptance, and personal empowerment, and Brian watched with pride as each of them began to develop a deeper understanding of who they were. They learned about their heritage, about the resilience of those who had come before them, and about the beauty of the cultural legacy they carried. This journey of self-discovery became a powerful tool, giving them the confidence to face the world with pride and purpose. Brian's daughters began to embrace their natural hair, each discovering her own unique style and learning to appreciate her own beauty without feeling the need to conform to anyone else's standards. For Brian, this transformation was beautiful to witness. He saw the pride in their eyes as they wore their natural curls, the confidence that came with loving and accepting themselves exactly as they were. It was a small but significant shift, a visible manifestation of the self-love and pride they were cultivating within. One of Brian's daughters, Alara, had struggled with self-esteem issues in school. She felt the sting of being different, of standing out in ways she didn't always understand or appreciate. But as she connected more deeply with her identity, Alara began to shed the insecurities that had once held her back. She became involved in her school's diversity and inclusion committee, advocating for cultural awareness and fostering a sense of belonging for students who, like her, often felt out of place. Through her involvement, she found a voice that was strong, assertive, and compassionate, and Brian saw in her a young woman who was ready to change the world. Brian also encouraged each of his daughters to trust in their own voices, to speak up for themselves and others whenever they encountered injustice. He taught them about ethical principles and the importance of integrity, emphasizing that standing up for what is right is often difficult, but always worth it. They discussed topics like fairness, equality, and empathy, often over long conversations at the dinner table. These discussions helped the girls develop a strong moral compass, guiding them in moments of decision and conflict. But Brian didn't just leave these lessons to words. He led by example. There was an incident when one of his daughters, Kaya, faced discrimination from a teacher who subtly questioned her intelligence. Brian, deeply affected by the impact this had on Kaya's confidence, didn't hesitate to advocate for her. He requested a meeting with the school administration, where he calmly yet firmly demanded that his daughter be treated with respect and dignity. The administration ultimately agreed to provide additional training on cultural sensitivity, a small but meaningful victory that reaffirmed to his daughters that they deserved respect and fairness. These experiences taught Brian's daughters the power of self-advocacy and the importance of having allies in their corner. They learned that they could confront injustice with grace and strength, and that their voices were valid, valued, and vital. Brian wanted them to understand that they were not defined by anyone else's perceptions or limitations. He told them time and again that they had the right to live authentically, to celebrate their identities, and to pursue their dreams without fear or hesitation. As his daughters grew more confident themselves, Brian noticed a shift in the way they carried themselves. They walked with a newfound self-assurance, spoke with conviction, and interacted with the world around them from a place of inner strength. They took pride in their accomplishments, celebrated each other's successes, and found joy in their heritage. They were no longer hesitant to embrace their cultural background or to share it with others. Instead, they wore it as a badge of honor, something that connected them to a rich history and gave them the resilience to face any challenge. At the same time, Brian made sure to show them that self-acceptance wasn't just about celebrating the good. It was also about embracing vulnerability, about acknowledging the fears and insecurities that were part of their journey. He wanted them to know that they didn't have to be strong all the time, that it was okay to ask for help and to lean on those who loved them. He shared with them his own struggles, opening up about moments of self-doubt, moments when he too had questioned his worth or worried about his ability to guide them. This openness fostered a culture of trust within their family, a place where they could all be themselves without fear of judgment. Through this journey, Brian saw his daughters grow not just into confident young women, but into compassionate, thoughtful, and courageous individuals who were unafraid to confront life's challenges. He knew that they would go on to face trials and obstacles, but he also knew that they had the strength to overcome them. They had inherited resilience from their heritage, a foundation of love from their family, and the wisdom to navigate a world that wasn't always kind. Empowerment and self-acceptance became the gifts that Brian passed on to his daughters, gifts that would guide them in all they chose to do. He knew that he had done everything in his power to prepare them for the world, and to instill in them the confidence to stand tall and the compassion to extend a hand to others. He took comfort in knowing that he had fulfilled his role, that he had given them the tools to build their own paths rooted in love, respect, and a deep sense of self. In quiet moments, Brian would reflect on the journey they had shared, from those early, uncertain days to the strong, united family they had become. He saw his daughters as reflections of everything he had hoped to impart: courage, resilience, and a heart open to love. And he knew that, as they went out into the world, they would carry with them not just his teachings, but the legacy of a family built on trust, acceptance, and empowerment. Brian had given his daughters the gift of self-empowerment, and they were now ready to carry that strength forward. But the journey they had shared together was not just about self-discovery. It was also about creating a lasting impact. In the next chapter, we'll see how the girls decided to honor Brian's dedication by establishing a foundation in his name, giving back to the community, and continuing the legacy of love and support he had nurtured. Stay tuned for a chapter filled with hope, purpose, and the continuation of Brian's transformative journey. As Brian's daughters entered adulthood, they often reflected on the man who had given them so much more than a home. Brian had not only raised them, but had empowered each of them to believe in their own potential, to cherish their heritage, and to lead lives of integrity. His sacrifices and dedication had not only transformed their lives, but had left an indelible impact on the kind of women they were becoming. Each of the girls held a deep desire to honor Brian's legacy, to give back in a way that would encapsulate the values he had instilled in them. It was Alia who first voiced the idea during a family gathering, a casual evening that had brought them all together after a busy week. "Why don't we create something in Dad's name?" she suggested, her voice full of excitement and hope. "A foundation, something that could help other kids, maybe kids who need support like we did. We could give back everything he gave to us." Her words resonated with her sisters. Each of them felt the weight of Brian's sacrifices, the years he had poured into building a life for them, and the strength he had given them to face their own journeys. They agreed that the best way to show their gratitude and to ensure that his impact lived on was to create a foundation in his honor, a way to carry forward the love and support that had transformed them. The Roddy Foundation for Youth Empowerment was born out of this shared vision. Its mission was clear: to provide educational support, counseling, and development opportunities to children in need, especially those who had experienced loss, hardship, or marginalization. The foundation would be a place of refuge and growth, a space where young people could find the same guidance and love that Brian had given to his daughters. Starting the foundation was no small feat, but each of Brian's daughters brought her own strengths to the project, each one contributing to its growth in her own unique way. Aaliyah, with her passion for music and the arts, envisioned programs that would use creative expression as a tool for healing. She organized workshops where children could learn to paint, sing, dance, and play instruments, using the arts as a way to process their emotions, build confidence, and connect with others. She knew firsthand how music could transform pain into beauty, and she wanted others to experience that same sense of release and empowerment. Naomi, ever the athlete and advocate for resilience, focused her energy on creating sports and wellness programs. She believed that physical activity was essential for building strength, discipline, and self-confidence. She organized soccer clinics, basketball camps, and track and field days, ensuring that children from all backgrounds had the opportunity to discover their own strengths and experience the joy of teamwork. For Naomi, these activities were more than just games. They were pathways to self-discovery and empowerment, avenues for young people to learn that they could overcome obstacles and achieve great things. Leah, with her compassionate nature and experience in community work, took charge of the foundation's counseling services. She knew that many of the children they would serve would need emotional support, guidance, and a safe space to express their feelings. Drawing from her background in social work, Leah created a team of counselors and mentors who could provide these young people with understanding, guidance, and tools for emotional growth. Leah wanted the foundation to be a place where children felt heard, where they could speak openly about their struggles and find a supportive community that truly cared. The foundation quickly became a source of hope and inspiration, not just for the children it served, but for the entire community. Families and local leaders took notice, offering their own support and resources, moved by the dedication and passion the Roddy sisters poured into their work. And Brian, watching his daughters from the sidelines, felt a profound sense of fulfillment and pride. This was more than he had ever hoped for. It was a living testament to the values he had tried so hard to impart. But the foundation's success was not simply a reflection of Brian's influence. It was also a reflection of the resilience, compassion, and strength that his daughters had developed on their own journeys. They had each transformed their experiences into a force for good, using their own stories to inspire and uplift others. Brian saw in each of them a reflection of the love that had bound them together as a family, a love that now extended outward, touching the lives of countless others. The impact of the Roddy Foundation began to spread, reaching children and families who had once felt overlooked or forgotten. The foundation offered scholarships for higher education, support for young entrepreneurs, and resources for mental health, all driven by a deep belief in the potential of each young person they served. The Roddy sisters wanted these children to know that they too were worthy of success, happiness, and a life filled with purpose. The foundation's annual gala became a cherished tradition in the community, a celebration of resilience, hope, and unity. At each gala, Brian's daughters would take turns sharing stories of the young people whose lives had been changed by the foundation. Stories of growth, achievement, and courage. And every year, Brian would stand before the audience, humbled by the legacy that had taken root in his name. He would speak not just as a founder, but as a father, sharing his gratitude for the journey that had led them all to this moment. A journey that had begun with one brave decision and had blossomed into something far greater than he had ever imagined. As the years went by, the Roddy Foundation continued to grow, expanding its programs and reaching more young people across the country. Brian's daughters became respected leaders, advocates for youth empowerment and social change, using their platform to address issues like racial inequality, access to education, and mental health awareness. Their work became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, love, resilience, and compassion could transform lives. For Brian, the foundation was more than just a legacy. It was a fulfillment of the promise he had made to himself and his daughters all those years ago, a promise to create a life filled with purpose, love, and meaning. He knew that his daughters were carrying forward the values he had cherished, spreading the impact of his love far beyond the walls of their home. And as he looked at the lives they had touched, the children they had inspired, and the community they had uplifted, Brian felt an overwhelming sense of peace and gratitude. The Roddy Foundation was more than a tribute. It was a testament to the transformative power of love, to the strength of family, and to the courage to create a life that defied expectations and broke down barriers. Brian's act of adopting his daughters had set off a ripple effect, one that would continue to touch lives for generations to come. In the quiet moments, Brian would reflect on this legacy, knowing that it would endure long after he was gone. He had planted seeds of love and hope, and those seeds had blossomed into something extraordinary, something that would continue to grow, reaching countless lives and inspiring others to believe in their own potential. Brian's life had become a journey of love and transformation, but his story was not yet complete. In the next chapter, we'll explore how Brian's legacy continued to expand, inspiring his daughters to carry forward his teachings of love, respect, and empowerment, a legacy that would echo across generations. Stay tuned for a chapter that will celebrate the profound impact of one man's courage and compassion, and the lives that were forever changed by his unwavering commitment to family. Brian had lived a life that few could fully comprehend, a life marked by bravery, sacrifice, and an unwavering dedication to his family. His journey had been shaped by choices that, though difficult, had created a ripple effect that transformed not only his own life, but the lives of countless others. What had started as a brave decision to adopt 8 orphaned girls had become a mission rooted in love, one that would extend far beyond his own lifetime. In their adulthood, Brian's daughters often looked back on the life he had given them, the sacrifices he had made, and the values he had instilled. They knew that their father's love was the foundation upon which they had built their own lives, and they carried forward his teachings in everything they did. They had become strong, compassionate women, each driven by a desire to give back and to honor the legacy of the man who had shown them that family was not defined by blood, but by love, commitment, and choice. As the years passed, Brian's daughters continued to expand the work of the Roddy Foundation. Each of them brought new programs and initiatives to life, finding innovative ways to reach young people who needed support, guidance, and hope. They traveled across the country, speaking at schools, community centers, and conferences, sharing their father's story and encouraging others to believe in the power of love and resilience. Their message resonated with people of all ages and backgrounds, inspiring them to find strength in their own families and to make choices that could change lives. The foundation began to receive national recognition for its work, and Brian's daughters were invited to share their journey on television, radio, and online platforms. They became role models, not only for the children they served, but for an entire generation that looked to them as examples of courage, kindness, and integrity. They shared the story of how their father, a once solitary cop, had embraced a life of purpose and compassion by opening his heart to 8 young girls. And in doing so, they inspired others to see the possibilities that could arise from even the smallest acts of kindness. Brian himself continued to be an active part of the foundation, though he had largely stepped back from public appearances. He spent his days mentoring young people, offering advice, and simply being present for those who needed a listening ear. To those who met him, he was more than just a founder. He was a father figure, a guiding presence who had turned his own life into a testament of love's transformative power. Brian often found himself deeply moved by the gratitude expressed by the young people he worked with, each one a reminder of the impact his daughters were carrying forward. One of the most rewarding aspects of the foundation's growth was the way it brought people together. Former foster children who had found support through the foundation returned as adults to volunteer, paying forward the kindness they had received. Families from diverse backgrounds joined the foundation's events, each one finding common ground in the values of empathy, community, and mutual respect. Brian watched as the foundation became a melting pot of hope and transformation, a place where love and acceptance thrived. But Brian's legacy was not limited to the foundation. His daughters had each embraced his teachings in their personal lives as well, forming families of their own and passing down the values that had shaped them. They taught their children about the importance of compassion, the strength that comes from unity, and the beauty of embracing one's identity. In their own ways, each daughter became a pillar of love and resilience, creating a new generation that would carry forward the lessons Brian had imparted. As Brian entered his later years, he found himself reflecting more often on the life he had lived and the choices he had made. He had been a solitary man who, by opening his heart, had found his greatest purpose in the role of fatherhood. He had seen his daughters grow from vulnerable children into remarkable women, each one a testament to the power of love, acceptance, and dedication. Brian knew that he had been blessed with a life that was far richer than he had ever imagined, a life that had given him a family, a legacy, and a reason to keep moving forward, even in moments of doubt. In his quiet moments, Brian would look through photo albums filled with memories of family gatherings, birthdays, graduations, and holidays. Each photo captured a moment of joy, a snapshot of a life that had been built from love and resilience. He knew that his legacy was not just in the foundation, or even in the accomplishments of his daughters, but in the lives they had touched along the way. For Brian, the true reward of his journey was knowing that the love he had given would continue to echo across generations, shaping lives, inspiring dreams, and bringing hope to those who needed it most. Brian's story became a symbol of what one person's courage could achieve. His daughters carried his legacy forward with pride, ensuring that his values and teachings would live on. They spoke often of the power of family, of the resilience they had found in each other, and of the love that had transformed their lives. Through their work, Brian's message reached far and wide, touching the hearts of people who needed a reminder that love could indeed conquer even the darkest of circumstances. In his final years, Brian found peace in knowing that he had fulfilled his life's purpose. He had given his daughters a family, a foundation built on love, and a sense of identity that no hardship could take away. He had shown them that with courage, compassion, and commitment, they could overcome any challenge and create a life of meaning. Brian's journey had come full circle from a solitary cop who had once lived for duty alone to a father, mentor, and guiding light whose life had become a beacon of hope for others. And so, Brian's legacy continued to grow, nurtured by the love and dedication of his daughters, carried forward by the foundation, and embodied by each person whose life had been touched by his story. He had created something far greater than himself, a legacy of love and transformation that would live on, a reminder to the world that even the smallest acts of compassion could create ripples that would change lives for generations to come. Thank you for being part of Brian's incredible journey. If his story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more stories of love, resilience, and transformation. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments, perhaps a favorite quote or something that inspired you from this journey. And remember, we all have the power to make a difference, one act of kindness at a time. Let Brian's story be a reminder that love in all its forms is a legacy worth leaving. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in our next story.